Tonight, Biden gave a speech boasting that he's killed an al-Qaeda figure in Afghanistan. Great. Feel safer? Of course you don't. Nobody does. And the reason nobody feels safer is Biden's response to the disaster in Afghanistan. Rather than pause and learn from it, maybe fire the people responsible for it, not simply the self-destructive withdrawal from Afghanistan, but also the pointless 20-year war there, rather than do any of that like a normal person would do, Biden immediately set off in another direction, provoking yet another conflict, this one in Eastern Europe. And he provoked it. They lie about it, but it's true. The facts are out there, and it's very obvious.
Okay, we're covering a lot of ground already. So much ground that it stretches from Afghanistan to Ukraine, where Biden definitely started that whole war, said very authoritatively by Tucker Carlson. But I want to start by expressing empathy for the audience of Tucker Carlson, at the very least sarcastically, because think about what you're exposed to there. The most condescending newsman in the history of TV. Do you feel safer? No, you don't. No one does. He just tells you flat out exactly how to feel about this. About something that one would think, a Trump fan, a conservative would be glad that this guy wasn't around, not only to stop him from potentially masterminding further attacks that kill either service members or civilians, but even if you're just a fan of retribution, which I'm guessing many in his audience are, the guy was the guy who planned 9/11. So you would think it would be considered a good thing, but it's not. In the same way that Obama getting Osama bin Laden wasn't a good thing. Weird that Tucker Carlson didn't find any reason to think that either of those things were good, even though he acknowledges there, because he has to have it both ways, that the war was a waste of time. The war in Afghanistan, the 21 years or whatever it was that we were there, was a waste of time and we shouldn't have been there. But he shouldn't have pulled out. You get the trick that he's playing on his audience there. He wants to pretend that he's anti-war. He wants to pretend that he's anti-intervention, but he did not want us to pull out of Afghanistan. If it was up to Tucker Carlson, we would still be there. Our service members would still be at risk. We would still be spending the billions of dollars. It's a little bit of sleight of hand that would only work on a group of people that have been so mentally and emotionally beaten down by Tucker Carlson that they can't follow the weird gaps in logic there, Jessica. But whatever it is, we know this. The consistent position is that even if Biden did something that seems tailor-made to please a conservative audience, it's not good enough and he shouldn't have done it. And now we're talking about something else. We're talking about Ukraine or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny to me that they're so focused on the deep state and making everything that the Biden administration do seem like a very large conspiracy. The truly interesting conspiracies we can confirm with released CIA documents. If you really want to get into it and you want to talk about why maybe killing a leader of Al-Qaeda is not great for safety in the United States, why there might be some retaliation for us doing that, great, have that conversation. But instead he starts talking about Ukraine, which is extremely interesting. And there's this narrative that the United States instigated Putin's invasion of Ukraine, which is wild because the United States very clearly said we have some security intel that suggests this is going to happen. Why would that provoke Russia to invade Ukraine? There have been so many news articles that have been run throughout history with no basis saying Russia's going to do X, Y, and Z, and we have intelligence, suggesting they're going to do this. And this has been a tool of propaganda to evoke fear, and then it doesn't happen and Russia laughs at us. That's happened so many times. Russia did this because they were planning on doing this. That's very clear. And to make this about Ukraine, it's just the classic bait and switch and ignoring all of reality, all of the facts, all of the history. And his audience, I also agree with you that, we can empathize with them because if all you're doing is watching Tucker Carlson and this is the narrative you hear all of the time, he presents it in a logical way and his delivery is kind of convincing. And so, to get people off of Fox News is a huge mission and to get people to stop watching Tucker Carlson is a huge mission because what is the alternative, right? We are not teaching good critical thinking in American public schools. The solution is good education, but what about all of the people that have gone through the public education system and now they only trust Tucker Carlson because he tells you everyone else is lying to you? It's really tough.
And that everyone smart feels the exact same way that you do, which is coincidentally the way that Tucker Carlson feels. At any particular moment, it might change, but you were always right, even as it changes. It's very 1984. Yeah, and those are the critical thinking skills that theoretically people of age have watching him now. They're destroying the schools. So in a few decades, it's gonna be worse and worse and worse, which is fun. But there's so like, we don't watch too much Tucker Carlson on this show on a weekly basis, but even in the short clips that we use, he fits in so much insanity. Not only, as we already talked about, we never should have been in Afghanistan and we definitely should still be in Afghanistan. But also, Biden's responsible for the invasion of Ukraine. Biden did that. It's on Biden. But what else does Tucker Carlson say day after day about that invasion? Who cares? It's fine that Russia's doing it. Nobody should care. It's totally cool. So what does it matter that Biden did it in that case? If it's a good thing, then who cares who was responsible for it? It's the same as COVID, that China definitely gave it to us and Biden made it worse. And also, it's nothing and you really shouldn't worry about it. Nobody's actually dying. In fact, the vaccine is worse, but China definitely gave it to everyone. Your brain will bleed watching some of this. In any event, he is not alone in his thoughts about how insignificant this is. James Inhofe, senator of Oklahoma, top Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, said the fact that the leader was in Afghanistan reflects the total failure of the Biden administration's policy toward that country. I mean, they got him. Okay, no, we're moving on. Okay. Michael McCall of Texas on the House Foreign Affairs Committee said the strike serves as a reminder the American people were lied to by President Biden. Al-Qaeda is not gone from Afghanistan as Biden falsely claimed a year ago. Yeah, but this isn't even my position, but Biden's position is we said we would still be able to function because we're American. We go literally wherever we want. We don't care about sovereign borders or anything. So maybe think about it a little bit. Anyway, I want to get to just a little bit more because they don't want this to stay in the news. They don't want this to be the focus because it is so clearly from their point of view a good thing for Biden. So here's what Tucker Carlson turned to, trying to ignore the Zawahiri news.
There are a lot of ways to pull out of Afghanistan. Biden chose a path that seemed designed to inflict maximum damage to the interests of the United States. He did that. Kind of no debating it, but Biden is not ashamed of it. He wasn't ashamed of it then, he's not ashamed of it now.
Okay, he's telling his audience that Joe Biden, for all of his faults, and Jessica and I could play a fun game of going back and forth naming them, and we would eventually pass out before we'd run out of things. But the idea that he looked at a spreadsheet of dozens of ways to pull out of Afghanistan and specifically chose the way designed to do the most damage to America is insane and perfectly in line with basically everything that Tucker Carlson says. That has become, I don't know if you watch any Tucker Carlson, that has become his go-to thing. That it is not that the Democrats are hurting America with the lockdowns or with their economic policy or with schooling or with the Green New Deal or whatever. They are only doing these things to destroy America. But bear in mind, they're also the swamp. They're the ruling elite. They're the ones who are in control of everything. They own everything, and they're trying to destroy everything to hurt the people who don't own anything. How exactly that would be good for the ruling elites is never made clear to his audience, but he repeatedly reiterates to them that every one of these choices, whether it's immigration or healthcare or energy or whatever, is purely and solely designed to damage America's interest in a way that's never actually defined.
Yeah. His theory is that if Biden wants to stay in power and wants to remain president, he can somehow convince his audience that that same man will do the thing that is most damaging to the United States. It just doesn't make sense. All of the logical fallacies that he puts forward are insane. They're absolutely insane. And he knows what he's doing. He's not completely unaware. He himself does not believe the logical fallacies that he puts forth because there are old interviews of him where he's criticizing right-wing newscasters and saying directly, these are people who are spewing populist rhetoric so that they can get views when they take a big check and go home and live a life that's completely disconnected from the everyday people they're trying to reach. He said that early in his career, and then he became that, and he's 100%. Tricking everyone with it. And so it feels like you said a waste of time to criticize Tucker Carlson, to call him names when he knows exactly what he's doing. And instead, I think spending most of our time countering that narrative with the facts is time well spent.
Yeah, and trying to peel off a few people who might not know that there's alternative sources of information. By the way, you made a great reference to that video early on. Everyone should definitely check out John Oliver's episode on Tucker Carlson. He does a great job in charting. Like Tucker Carlson said everything that he was going to do. He said exactly what his scheme was going to be, and then he did it. I want to read just one more graphic. And I want to apologize to the audience for making you try to make sense of this sort of thing. But again, we are a people who are driven by empathy. And I want you to feel a bit of empathy for his audience, who has to contend with paragraphs like this. I'm gonna jump ahead to graphic 9. Biden has been more pro-China than any president, and yet he seems to want a war with China. Now, this does not make any sense at all. In fact, it only makes sense if the Biden White House is intentionally trying to weaken and destroy the United States. I would like to add one other alternative. It only makes sense if you're an idiot trying to delude your audience. Like they really want to have their, in this case, Chinese cake and eat it too. He's weirdly pro-China. In fact, maybe a commie. Also, he wants nuclear war with China. Now, this might not seem to make sense, but we'll be back after this. This is what his audience is up against on a daily basis, and they will accept it. They will accept that he is simultaneously way too favorable towards the communists in China and also wants China to nuke and kill everyone that Biden has ever known. It's fun, really fun. Good thing that he only has millions of viewers on a nightly basis.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's amazing how he can convince his audience. And the right does this every new Democratic administration, where suddenly every problem that was debated on the campaign trail, like you're inheriting this slew of problems, suddenly they're brand new. The moment Biden got in office, it was Biden has caused inflation, Biden is handling the COVID crisis terribly, vaccines. The vaccine, Trump was gonna call it the Trump vaccine, but suddenly when Biden came in office, it was tyranny that we were getting vaccines. Stimulus checks were suddenly something that was a terrible economic idea, but when we got them under Trump, it was thank you, Mr. Trump, for giving us our checks. Same thing with the rising power of China and the US-China challenge, where there's this idea that we have to compete with China instead of collaborate with China and address, I don't know, global issues like climate change, but they're terrified of globalism. But Biden inherited a tense relationship with China, and Biden hasn't really done much to prop up China. And so it's just crazy how they Tucker Carlson especially relies on just a short-term memory of his viewers. And it's really important. I think we do a good job of it on TDR and TYT to put the news in the context of what's happened before, because if you just talk about what's happening today, it doesn't make much sense, and it's really easy to spin that narrative. And that's really how Tucker Carlson is so successful.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.